Videos to the 1-year anniversary 1. Next time. We are pretty much on track, guys. We are so close to hitting 4,000 subscribers by the end of the first year. We just have to keep pushing like we've been. Your comments, your likes, and your sharing of this channel's videos to anyone you can are driving this to that crazy, crazy goal of 4,000 subs. If you've got perspective and memes, post them around. Also link me to them. I want to see what you've got. And if you see anyone on a different YouTube page, or Discord, or Reddit, or any social media you have asking how good a figure I've covered is, maybe share them a link to my review. We can do this, and it's not up to me. You guys have the power here. And no matter what, thank you. So, in honor of the final season of the War for Cybertron coming out, as little honor as that deserves, and in honor of me reviewing the last of the regular figures from Kingdom Wave 3, though I would have preferred to have covered the Ark and Rodimus, before this, as I currently have no idea when I'll actually be able to get a hold of those, let's just take a look back at Wave 2. Welcome to What's the Best? What's the best Kingdom Wave 2 figure that I own? Which is all of them. I guess the Ark is technically not a Wave 3 figure, so I'm really only missing Rodimus to complete Wave 3. Size order, let's go. Starscream is a surprisingly satisfying little guy. Considering how bad the initial pictures of this looked, I'm actually quite pleased with the way he turned out, especially given that he's intended to resemble the Earthrise Starscream, a figure I have little patience for, and he even has a nose cone on his back, a sin against Seekers in my book. So, it looks good, it's not nearly as prone to falling over as others would have you believe because they can't figure out to use the rear wings as heel spurs, and I describe the posing as a step behind the average. Not terrible, but he's missing a waist swivel and his head can only swivel. Plus his limbs have, at best, average range. Honestly, the worst thing about his robot mode is how much the null rays want to fall off. His transformation is decent, it behaves a bit unexpectedly, untabbing his chest requires finger pain, and I do think that there are ways to improve it, but it's not bad, and it leads to a not bad mode. This is definitely the weak link of the figure, but it's a lot better in person than the pictures led me to expect. The nose doesn't look half as silly as I anticipated, though that's still not good, but the rest of this holds up. So yeah, this is pretty good for 10 bucks. Megatron. This is amazing for 10 bucks. Damn, this is a good 10 bucks spent. This is one of those figures I'm happy to recommend to people. Before I get too ahead of myself, if you've not seen my review on this guy and you expect the gun to look like this, you are going to have to paint it yourself. Or get your sibling to do it for you like I did. We used Stuart Semple's mirror to do mine. He should probably start paying me at some point for all the free advertising I do for him. But yeah, this is a stunningly awesome little figure. It's a retool of the Siege Megatron, and if you ask me, this manages to surpass its bigger brother from a higher price bracket. It's just that figure again, with its flaws fixed, in a smaller size class with better accessories and a better paint job. You know, it occurs to me, I think all of the core class figures are better than their Voyager counterparts. You might tell me I'm crazy, but yeah, I vastly prefer all of these, and this little guy is a treatise as to why. Sitting there looking all dope as hell with a shiny paint job and fantastic sculpt, despite being a core class, he has better than average posing, and it even manages to fit in some backwards butterflies. His shoulder pauldron gets in the way of the cannon, so it's not perfect, but this is way beyond what you should be expecting at this price point. His transformation is also an improvement on the larger figure, simplifying it, making its parts forming less of an ordeal, especially when compared to the Earthrise version, and turning it into more of a traditional tank, or at least less of an H. And the tank mode is pretty good. The barrel is definitely less than ideal, and where the shoulders meet the epaulets is a tad less than convincing. But it has a much cleaner back end, and it's a fully functional tank with a working turret section, though it doesn't have any kind of wheels or a way to roll. So let's get into the deluxes. And here we run into a problem. I'm not fucking talking about that shitty Earthrise RC. Why did Hasbro re-release the worst figure of the entire trilogy when it was literally anything else from Wave 2 and onward that was unobtainium? You couldn't find any other figures. You could find Ursies cause no one wanted them. So ignoring that thing, if we are going by size, then Huffer is next in line. This is a really flawed figure. It's got a few things going for it at least though. It looks great, don't get me wrong, this looks a lot better than if they tried to go for G1 accuracy with the weird arms and unpleasant head. Also, as I've gone over before, this is actually a much older design, and you can tell that by the fact that the cab section isn't clear plastic painted orange. With this, they went about getting the clear plastic the right way, making it a separate insert piece that attaches to the opaque plastic of the rest of the cab. Were this designed today, they'd have either made it the cheap way or the idiot way, where all of it is just the clear plastic. I'm not sure which, because I thought clear plastic was more expensive than the regular stuff, so if they are just doing it out of pure stupidity, well, I'm not sure if that's more or less infuriating. Another good point of this guy is his accessories, as he comes with a nice Spartan laser and a really brutal shield. The shield is a real highlight to me because this actually looks like something that might be able to stop blaster fire, unlike the glass of cliff jumpers. But unfortunately, it's all downhill from here. Posability on this guy is a hair substandard, and his knees are in a weird place. Plus, his transformation is really unsatisfying, and it doesn't do enough. You just don't feel done when you're done. The nice thing is that this thing's parts forming is entirely optional and is just intended as fancy weapon storage, and this might be some of the best weapon storage I've ever seen. The bad thing is, this alt mode just ain't it, Chief. The hands are just chilling out on the top, and he has a gap in the front where the sun do shine. The sun shine very well. This feels like the result a transformation that unfinished should produce. Air Razor, another solid win. A figure that feels a little lifeless and looks a bit off till you start to pose it, then it really begins to shine. But there is a dark side with this one. According to several people who've messaged me, this thing's wings are apparently very breakable. I have heard multiple reports of these things snapping right out of the box. And that makes too much sense to me because mine were misassembled when I got it, with this tab actually being on the wrong side of the wing, causing the whole assembly to be stuck bending the wrong way. I was able to successfully flex it to where it's supposed to go, but that was probably at huge risk to the figure, and I'm just lucky I got away with it. But if you get past that, this is a great figure. It's a little off in the looks, it's mostly accurate, but it's not the right color, and the head feels like they did their best, but that just didn't fully pan out. The posing is this figure's true asset. While there isn't really anything other figures don't have, basically every single normal joint she does have has way more range than almost any other figure. Though she does have shin-shattering joints, which are uncommon to say the least. Transformation on this is weak. You're not doing much, and the much you're not doing doesn't amount to much. The bird mode is good from the top and very bad from basically any other angle. I think the robot head should have been made smaller and should have fit into the bird head, thus freeing up the chest cavity for the arms to go into that. It's not a total wash, but there was room for improvement here. Ractonite, the worst of the fossilizers. Apparently, when I claimed that this was a woman, that was possibly erroneous. There is no confirmation on the gender of this character. That was just a persistent rumor I was getting inundated with comments about. Maybe they are a female, but as I understand it, no one has said one way or the other, though I might be going off outdated information. That said, this is not great. It does something interesting by incorporating the dino head into the shoulder, making more use of that part than the other two fossilizers, but outside of that, I kind of run out of real positives to say about this thing. I'm a sucker for a lame bot, but this thing just doesn't do anything for me. The head isn't cool, and the body really isn't cool. Plus, it's missing fists of any kind. The torso is probably its biggest problem. As while I don't need every figure to be heroically proportioned or anything, this isn't even too fat. It's balloon-shaped, and that's the problem. If this was at least a little thinner going up, that'd really help. As a fossilizer, you'd think its torso would break down into more components than just a giant useless brick, and that could have helped if they used it to more evenly distribute the mass. But they didn't, and everything about it suffers for it. The robot mode suffers, the transformation suffers, and the weaponizing really suffers. Anything you can make with this thing is entirely too big. Oh, and the feet flat suck too. These are not up to the relatively simple task of keeping this figure standing. Kingdom Dinobot. I'm not in love with this figure as much as many people are. Much like the previous figure, it has a problem with the torso ballooning upwards, and that just sticks in my craw more than it probably should. Doesn't change that it does though. Honestly, it stems from the fact that they faux formed to try and get it to look more like the show, and if you ask me, they either needed to go further with the faux forming, or just not have bothered and let it look inaccurate. And both those things are stuff I normally wouldn't say. Like, abandon accuracy or faux form more are just against my very nature. This also really needed buffer arms. These little noodles don't do Dinobot justice. Sadly, there are no upgrade kits as of yet to make these worthy of the man. One thing I can't argue with is that head. I actually think I like this more than the masterpiece because it actually gives him a neck. But aside from the few appearance gripes, this is a pretty solid figure with above average posing and an interesting and fun transformation. Also a really solid alt mode. The alt mode isn't as perfected as the Megatron from Wave 1, but it's quite poseable, reasonably accurate, and fun on its own. Inferno. Or Grapple, but good. What can I say about this thing other than it fixed every problem the mold it's based on had? Grapple looked boring. This looks cool. Grapple was brittle. This is built to take a bomb. Grapple's fit and finish were weak at best. This is made like they actually cared. This is one of those retools that's so good, even though I didn't like the base mold, I actually will recommend this. It doesn't pose amazingly, and the transformation is dead simple, but the two modes are good enough, and the handling of this thing are satisfying enough that it makes up for that. Ultra Magnus. Oh my god, how many times am I going to review this figure? I've reviewed this particular toy so many times, can I please stop? I don't even have that many Ultra Magnuses, but he has to have the most reviews of any character on my channel. I have nothing new to say about this thing. The core robot is bad, the combined robot is good, the truck mode is bad, the combined car carrier mode is good, but it does have a problem with being halfway cyber stylized when it's just supposed to be a regular modern day car carrier. It has really satisfying punchy colors and limited articulation. Review over! So, what's the best? There is an easy choice to be made for the worst. Ursi. Even though I didn't review her, she gets to be the worst purely by existing. But the worst thing I covered in this video was Ractonite. There is not one thing this thing does well. It is a 4 out of 10 across the board, not awful, but not breaching into neutral either. Now the next spot goes to Huffer. This one is a bit better than the Ractonite, with the worst things about it, I'd rate as a 4 out of 10. But it does have better things. Like the robot mode is at least a 7, accessories are also right up there, the parts forming gets a thumbs up, and it's not insultingly small for a deluxe like some figures. But yeah, this is where this lands. Next up is Starscream. They are almost exactly tied in every category. Posability? Yeah, that's about the same. Vehicle mode. This is probably better, but it's still flawed, and the robot mode isn't as good as the Huffer. Really, these can flip-flop, but I'm putting it ahead because it's cheaper. Next up is Ultra Magnus. A fun and interesting idea, but very flawed with its alt mode and its parts forming. It's cool to have at least one Magnus that does this, even if I'd normally prefer one who doesn't parts form. But it's still not fun to do, and it's something I've covered many, many times before, so you already have all the information I can give you. Then there's Airraiser, a fantastic figure. Its alt mode is far from perfect, but that's its only objective flaw, and it's a tolerable one since it still does look great from some angles. The robot mode is fantastic. With a solid look and great posing, it's a deluxe I think most people would be proud to get a hold of. Next, we've got Inferno. They took a boring, breakable figure and made it neither boring nor breakable. They found a way to shove magic into a mold I didn't like. So, that's going to wind up with Dinobot in this position, which might surprise you since I said I'm not as in love with this figure as most people are. But that's a skewed metric. This is great. The only real problems I have with it are visual ones with the torso. To be fair, they are not problems with accuracy, which would have been subjective, as you may not care if it's accurate or not. But no, the torso is objectively a bloated shape, largely due to the fact that they were aiming to be accurate and failed. But that's not my issue. Basically, everything else on this is above average. So Dinobot is not the best, because you probably thought I forgot about the core class Megatron. But I didn't. This is a Voyager figure packed into legend scale. Is it perfect? No. Is it incredibly good for what it is? Yes. But it's not just good on a skewed scale. It's just good. There is not a thing this tiny guy is behind the curve on. And you know what? Maybe I'm letting the fact that this blew my expectations out of the water really corrupt my rankings this time, but I can't think of a figure from Wave 2 I found to be more satisfying. And I've received many messages from you guys expressing your astonishment for how good this thing is, so I feel at least a little justified in saying Core Class Megatron is the best. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.